Well, hello, LinkedIn, Twitch, Twitter, or I mean X, and all the other social platforms out there. Of course, Facebook too. Um, I'm your host, Frank Lavinia, for this quick live stream. So, for those you've noticed a distinct pattern, and a lot of you are data scientists out there, so pattern recognition is your um, sorry, I just saw an IM come through. Pattern recognition is your thing. You have probably noticed that I have not been streaming as much lately, and I also haven't been posting as much LinkedIn as lately. And that is because last week I was on a boat. I actually did post a live stream from the ship. I was going to do more live streams from the boat, but two reasons kind of prevented me. One, the internet connection was kind of questionable out at sea. Um, I'm not sure really why that is. It just so I live streaming, I guess, is particularly bandwidth hungry. The other thing is, I really needed a break. This has been a wild year for me personally. Great year professionally. That's all awesome. Personally, it's been a wild year. It's been a good year. Don't get me wrong, but we've added a new member of the family, and there's a lot of legal machinations to make that happen. So I wanted to take the opportunity um, to just unplug more or less for the week. For those of you that were IMing me, you know I didn't totally unplug, but I did unfortunately have to miss two conferences. I was going to speak at Voice or AI and Voice conference here in DC, and there was also a AI summit up in New York that I bowed out of. Um, so and it's interesting because I missed a week and I missed a lot. Whenever I do these talks or whatever, I talk about AI and how fast things are moving. Is that if you miss, like, I always joke, like, if you turn off the computer for the weekend, by the time you log in back on Monday, you really missed a lot. And this week was no exception. I understand that Google announced Gemini, and that got a lot of buzz. There was also something I saw on my phone. Again, I looked at my phone probably more than I should. That AMD has a new series of chips that are out. I'm gonna dig through that announcement. Um, well, probably should have done it before this, right? Um, just a whole bunch of stuff in that regard. And I also see that Google. Well, I mentioned Google. I mentioned AMD, but Elon Musk has Grok. Grok is now. I'm not exactly sure what's availability is. Again, full disclosure. I just saw the notifications come through. I watched some kind of introductory videos on YouTube. Gemini is by far the most fascinating because it is kind of built from the ground up to be multimodal. But I think if you had to kind of like encapsulate this in a single term or a single phrase, I think what we've seen over the last couple of weeks, again, we're about a year plus or minus a week since the release of ChatGPT, and that has really altered the trajectory of AI. It's definitely changed um, the temperature of the room. It's definitely far more like the Bahamas than it is in Baltimore. Fun fact: got back yesterday. Um, wonderful time seeing some old friends in Bayonne, but the drive from down 95 yesterday in the rain was just unpleasant. Then I wake up today to about an inch or an inch or two of snow. Beautiful look, but kind of when you realize, wait a minute, I could have been in the Bahamas. Um, Now I understand why a lot of tech and entrepreneurs kind of um, spent there. I believe I was on the same island that SBF had his little mansion on, and I could totally understand why. Um, didn't go to that part of town, but it would have been cool to do. I'm sure at some point that mansion will be a tourist attraction. Um, but in any case, the phrase I would describe last week, or the announcements last week, is the empires strike back, and multiple empires. Right? ChatGPT is kind of was this massive leap forward that I think shook up the industry to its core, like the type of thing that we haven't seen since like Netscape maybe IPO'd, or Facebook really and social media really took off. And probably the iPhone would probably be the most recent example of that, of how it just changed everything overnight. And it changed customer expectations, both customers in the enterprise, outside the enterprise, and it really launched the consumerization of IT. And I think that that is really kind of the key here. The other thing I would point out is these companies that have been kind of quiet have not been sitting on the sidelines idly by. They have been working feverishly to come up with alternatives, both in the hardware and the software stack. Software is kind of the obvious thing that gets covered, but I think it's also interesting that AMD is finally producing some kind of AI-based chip solution. Again, I didn't read the whole article, but it does look at least like instead of sitting on the sidelines, which it totally looked like they were, I should have known better. But they have definitely come to bear with some interesting tools and innovations. It's also interesting to note that Google Bard, when it first released, was, well, not ideal. But kudos to the Google team because they are again working feverishly behind the scenes to improve and advance their research in that regard. So to that end, I think Gemini is also in a major push forward. Elon Musk, not to be left out, has pushed through kind of Grok, and I know that there's some other things about Grok that are probably better said in a much after I read all the documentation, play around with it. But I think what you're seeing is that the runway, when you're an innovator, when you're like the first one to break through, I mean, just to the next level, like ChatGPT was, you have a certain amount of runway, right? And that is going to be, in the olden days, it used to be 18 months. Now we're seeing it's closer to 12 months. Obviously, I think Google Bard may have been pushed out a little before it was fully baked, but good on them because the perception sometimes could be reality, particularly in this market and in any market. So they pushed out an early version. Yeah, wasn't perfect, wasn't bad, wasn't the best, but I've been playing around with Gemini, and it is definitely, I think the quality is a bit better. I haven't played around with the multimodal stuff where I can show it pictures and kind of play games with it that way. Haven't done that yet. Full disclosure. Um, but it is interesting to kind of see that, and it's just funny, like the 1 week of the year that I actually just kind of like disconnect completely, or at least attempt to, boom, all this stuff happens. So, but I think it's interesting to see that what we're seeing now is the empires striking back, and the empires are the usual suspects, right? The Google, Facebook has actually had some kind of strikes back, but they're going a different approach, going with more of the open, providing the models for open source. But I think that we're seeing kind of how this is the new normal. This pace of innovation is going to be the new normal for a while. And there's also an interesting article I saw on Claude by Anthropic, which is another large language model, which is definitely that I need to check my sources, so to speak. But it looks like Claude and AWS will have a very tight relationship. Obviously, reInvent generative AI was excuse me, was a major source of the um, uh, content theme for AWS reInvent. They had Party Rock, which is built on top of AWS Bedrock. All of these things, you're seeing the empires kind of striking back, right? First it was ChatGPT, then Microsoft went in and solidified the relationship with that, with OpenAI, and then now you're seeing all these other companies kind of just throwing out the best that they got at this, and they've been throwing it, but now they're just releasing it. So I think what we're seeing this week, somebody asked me, am I surprised at all this? I was like, no, this is a normal pattern, right? Somebody does something unique and new. They have astonishing success. Other people are going to rush into that and actually make it a true gold rush. So I'm not surprised at that. And I think, honestly, I think it's a good thing. And here's why. If you listen to the last episode of Data Driven, where we had a guest on, and he was talking about how it's important to not have all your eggs in one basket, and we were talking about in regards to generative AI and LLMs. I was like, oh, so just in case there's any kind of drama or incidences between the board and the CEO of a particular company, and we all kind of looked at each other and laughed, said, oh yeah, but that would never happen. Obviously, we were referring kind of tongue in cheek to the craziness that went on for that wild, was it 72 hours or 96 hours when We really weren't sure what was going on at OpenAI behind the scenes. Um, and there's still been, I noticed a lot of the speculation about what that is. It seems to have subsided. I think people have moved on to this next wave of things. But the timing of all these announcements are very fortuitous for all these alternative software to come out, um, because the idea of it really, I think, was good timing. I think for the market and for humanity, right? The idea of having one company, one private company that's kind of a nonprofit, kind of not, um, having that much control and power and just in one place is not a good idea. It's not sustainable. It's not a good idea for privacy, for innovation, for human rights, the whole gamut. So I think what we're seeing now is this rush where, well, you know what? You don't have to use, if you want to get into large language models, and you don't have to use ChatGPT. Now, in a very real sense, that wasn't really true, right? There have always been, almost always have been some alternatives, right? There's been Llama has been around for a while, and there's Falcon. There's a number of reasonably good alternatives, but none of them have kind of that enterprise turnkey kind of magic like you're going to see with Google or AWS and Claude and things like that. So I think now we're seeing a proper ecosystem form around not just AI, because that's been around for a while, but in large language models in general. I think that has been the interesting sea change, pun intended, over the last 7 to 10 days. Um, and it was interesting to watch that and kind of snippets from like my news feed and things like that when I was trying not to look at my phone. It was a hard week to turn away, but definitely I've got a lot of emails to sift through and stuff like that to get through. But stay tuned to franksworld.tv or wherever you're watching this. If you're watching this on LinkedIn, be sure to do that. If you're watching this on YouTube, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Um, as well as if you're watching this on Twitch or Facebook or X, even, I would definitely love to have um, let people know what they think about this in the comments below and what you'd like to see me cover. And if you are looking for if you are looking to be on our podcast, Andy and I would love to have you. If you go to datadriven um, TV. There's a link there called Be Our Guest. You can fill out the form, and we'd love to have you for a chat. I was hoping to get Andy on the stream. We can kind of do a brain dump of post cruise. But what's interesting was I actually recorded a segment, and again, unreliable internet. So I did a hard recording. So I have to transfer it off my phone, and I'll do it. But basically, they have a bar on ship that's called the Bionic Bar, where it'll basically make your drinks for you. And it's very fascinating, not so much because of the robots are obviously an attraction, but it will actually show you, because you pay with your badge, your kind of room key. They know all about your demographics, so they can actually track data and they visualize it. What types of drinks are popular based on time of day of cruise, are you at sea, or you at port, your demographics, your gender, your age, all that sort of thing. They capture, not really surprised at that, but they actually share it, which is kind of cool. So you can see which are the most popular drinks based on your age and things like that. It was a fascinating look. There was also a segment where in the main one of the theaters, because it's a big ship, it has actually two kind of main entertainment areas, theaters anyway. And they had this robotic display, and I honestly, I had serious monitor envy. Um, so they had 6 monitors, right? Not unlike I do, but they were also mounted on robotic arms. So based on what they were trying to do or display, the robots were able to change the rotation of the picture. They were able to change the configuration of the monitors. They were able to. There was this one scene where they were imitating a sketchbook of Leonardo da Vinci. So they took two of the monitors, put them portrait up, and then made it look like a book. And it was fascinating to see. And I just had instant monitor envy, which is something a feeling I usually don't have very often. But it was definitely, it got me thinking about reading up a little bit more on robotics, because there's just so much cool stuff that can be done there. And ultimately, when you look at where the disruption is really going to be, obviously a lot of white collar work is going to be disrupted by just generative AI models and kind of the AI work that's being done that's software based. But I think there's also plenty of room left for disruption in terms of robotics as well. Interestingly enough, one of the robot arms wasn't working because they couldn't get there was some kind of cut in the hose that basically uses air suction to lift up items and things like that. So it's interesting to see how that goes. Um, Fascinating look. I definitely will cut that video down and share it. But I just want to get back into my habit of live streaming. And as you can tell, my voice is a little bit scratchy today. So thanks for joining. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe. Comment in the video below what you think you'd like to see. And as always, you can hit me up on X or Twitter, whatever it's called, at Frank Digs Data. I'm also on Instagram there too. And you can go to franksworld.com or datadriven.tv. And of course, we've not forgotten Impact Quantum, the podcast. We are very close to solving our scheduling and logistics issues. Um, and yeah, so hopefully we'll have something to say about that soon. But with that, I'm going to end the stream and hope you had a good week. Let me see if I can get to my outro graphic. There we go. Have a good one.